I'm going to talk about half square triangles today, sometimes written as HST. And did you know that you can actually make dozens of quilt designs if you can just do a half square triangle and mix it with some squares? So if you learn how to do this, then there are just tons of design possibilities. So as always in quilting, there's more than one way to do things. If you want to make some single triangles, then you'll just take two squares. These squares that I'm doing today are a 4-inch square size, and I'm just going to accurately draw a line down the center. Now, of course, half square triangles can be any size. Because this one is 4 inches now, by the time I've sewn it into triangles, it will be 3.5 inches. And then with the seam allowance, that'll take it down to a 3-inch once it's all sewn into the quilt. So my black line shows pretty clearly there, and what I'm going to do is sew a line, or I'm going to sew a seam that's 1/4 inch each side of that black line. So you need to go to your machine and make sure that it's set for 1/4 inch. Now my machine already sews 1/4 inch, so I don't actually have any setting up to do, but on most machines you will have to set it to 1/4 inch. That's 1/4 inch in one direction, and now I'm sewing 1/4 inch in the other direction. And you are going to trim these to size, but even so, you should still try and be as accurate as you can and try and sew your lines, really straight. So let me see, can you see that? The black line is my drawing line, and then the white seam's 1/4 inch each side of it. What I'm going to do now is just cut down that line. And actually, you could just cut that with a pair of scissors, but I guess out of habit, I'm using my rotary cutter. That's just what I usually do. So now when we open those out, we've got two triangles. So I'm going to press these open, and I will press both seams in one direction, and then we're going to trim them down to size. I'll just go and press these. So now it's time to trim, and I've just put this white paper behind this little ruler so that you can see it, because this is what I'm going to use to trim it with. You do need some kind of a trimming tool. This is the one that I use. There are lots of different ones on the market. And just to give you a little review on this one, it's Block Lock. When I bought it, I actually thought it was quite expensive, but really I've used it so many times that I've just really had my money's worth out of it, so no complaints there. And you do have to be careful with it. It's a little bit brittle. When I hadn't had it very long, I dropped it and I've actually broke the corner off this. But really, I still use it. It's made no difference whatsoever to how I use it to make my triangles. It's hard to see this on camera, but down the center here is an opaque line, and that is a little piece that's actually cut out of the plastic or whatever this is made of. And what you do is you line that up on your triangle. So this one side fits exactly to the corner. I'm putting it on there. I'm looking for the 3.5 inch mark, because that's the finished size I want. So I want to do it a little bit bigger than that. And then you push it along and it hooks to the seam. And so it fits snugly up there. And then you can just press on there and just trim around the edges. So I'm just going to do these two edges. Oh, sewing machine's in the way. Okay. So that's that side done. And then I'm going to turn it around to the other side. Turn my rule around also. Snuggle it up to that side. Now this time I'm going to sit this exactly on the 3.5 inch mark. And then again, well, I'm actually going to move that before I start cutting, because otherwise I'm going to hit my sewing machine again. Exactly on the 3.5 inch mark. Snugged up to that seam. Cut it. And there you've got a perfect 3.5 inch half square triangle. And you would just do that with the other side. So you've already made 2. If you lined that up with a square in the center and sewed them together, you'd start to make a pattern. But I think you can see that's an easy way to do it. But what I want to do is, I don't want to make 2 at once. If I'm making a quilt that's got lots of half square triangles, I want the whole job to go faster than that. I'm going to take 2 8-inch squares of fabric and place them face to face. Then I'm going to draw a line down the center vertically and horizontally, making 2 4-inch squares. Once I've done that, I'm going to put the ruler diagonally and draw a diagonal line across the center and then across the center squares of the edges. Now I'm going to take it to the sewing machine, and again, just like on the first one, sew 1/4 inch each side of the diagonal line that I've drawn. And try and be as accurate as you can with this. Here you can see the black line that I've drawn, and the seam's 1/4 inch each side of it. Now I'm going to cut along the horizontal and vertical lines. These triangles down now. I've already trimmed these off. As you can see, they all look pretty good. That's what they look like on the back. And you'll have them ready to make a quilt. The finished size of these now is 3.5 inches. So you can see it. And because you have that little bit of extra that you can trim off, by the time you've trimmed them, they'll look good. Now, the things you're looking for when you trim them, and this is really why you need the trimmer, you need this corner to come exactly the point into the corner, and the same on the other side. And it doesn't seem like it's important, but those are the little things that when you finish your quilt make it look really good. But I hope that this helped you with some triangles, and you'll try this way, or maybe you'll watch another video and find a way that you like better. I like this. It's quick and easy. This tool helps a lot, and as I say, there are other tools on the market that you can buy that work in different ways. So I'm just going to continue and trim these all off, and I hope you'll give this a try. So now we're going to take our half square triangles, and I'm going to show you how to make a pinwheel block. So this quilt is a little bit creased up because it's been folded up, but it was made out of lots of different size pinwheel blocks. And this one here, this is a pinwheel block. So if you are going to make any quilt, the way you decide what size to make your block is think about taking the one single half square triangle that we've just made and just measure that. So this triangle, for example, is 2.5 inches, and it will be 2.5 inches square. I guess if I hold my ruler the right way around, you might be able to see that. 2.5 inches. So to make this, if I was going to start now and make that block, I would go and cut pieces that were 3.5 inches square. And the reason for that is you lose 1/4 inch in this seam here when you sew it in, and you on each side, so that's 1/2 inch, and then you lose 1/2 inch down the center, again 1/4 inch each side, because you're sewing down that center seam that far apart. So whatever size you want it to be totally finished when it's inside the quilt, it's that size, plus an inch. So that's the way you have to remember it. And there are lots of different size pinwheels in this block, and that's because a lot of these were leftover just triangles that I had cut, and the fabric was just too pretty to throw away. And so I made lots of little pinwheels, depending on the size, mixed it in with a few squares, and then lots of white background. So before I started, I decided what size I wanted my blocks to be. So this is a block here, and so it's 10 inches. And then I would cut enough white to fill in the spaces and use lots of white. And you can design, you know, whatever you want to. You could make the pinwheels all the same size. You could mix them with white. You could mix up the sizes. It's just fun to design what you want to do and then put it into practice. And I was really pleased with the way this one came out. I really like this quilt. And I actually hand quilted it because this one is going to my granddaughter. You need 4 of these half square triangles to make a pinwheel. And just turn them around till you see the right shape. There we go. Do you see the pinwheel there? Now you've already cut these exactly to match, so they should go together really easily. So the first thing to do is put right sides together that way and right sides together that way. And then we're just going to sew down this seam with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now you've done that, just open them up. Put your 2 halves back together again. And at this point, it would be a good idea to press them. I'm just going to finger press for the moment. And as always, I'm finger pressing them in opposite directions so I can nest the seams. Because in this case, it's going to be really important that you nest these seams together really well. And I'm now going to just sew a 1/4 inch seam down there. So let's make sure our points all match in the middle. Yep, that's pretty good in the middle there. And so now I'm going to go ahead and actually press this. Okay, so this was the scary bit when I first started making pinwheels. You actually need now to just put your quick unpick in here and just undo these last stitches here. It's on the waist side of the seam. You're not undoing anything on the side that's going to stay together. And this is so you can lay the seam flat. So you're going to do that one and the same one on the other side. And now that I've done that, do you see how I've pressed all the seams so that they're all going in the same direction? So you're going to open that centerpiece out and you'll have that little, almost makes like a little pattern in there. And again, I'm going to take that, in fact I'll just press it now real quick. So once it's pressed, that's what it looks like on the inside. And that just gives you not a whole lot of bulk, because to have so many seams there in the center is pretty bulky. That flattens out that bulk and it gives you a really neat finish. And then on the other side, that all looks like a pretty good, you know, they all come together the way they're supposed to. And this is what you're aiming for. If your points were over here and over here, then it wouldn't look right. But because you've cut accurately and you've sewn accurately, this is what you'll get. You can make lots of pinwheels like that and make into any quilt that you want to. I'm not going to do the same with this one as I did with the white and blue quilt, because I have in mind a baby quilt that I'm making. I haven't exactly decided what pattern, but I know I'm going to put some pinwheels in it. So I hope you'll go ahead and try this. These are really fun. A little bit scary, I know, cutting the stitches there. If you've liked this and you found it pretty easy to follow, please like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.